Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here, how y'all doing? So a while back, I made a video discussing Salil, the Phantom Ninja, a relatively obscure but still somewhat popular character when it comes to Ninjago. And in today's video, I wanted to do something similar by covering another relatively obscure character when it comes to Ninjago, with that character being Lur, the first ever Master of Water. So, let's get into this whole thing. So, right off the bat, I'm sure you're probably wondering, who is Lur? And I don't really blame you if you haven't heard of him. When it comes to Lur, he's a pretty obscure character when it comes to Ninjago, all things considered. Given the fact that Lur is never seen nor referenced at any point during the TV show, he doesn't appear in any of the sets, he isn't in any of the graphic novels, he didn't appear in any of the video games, he wasn't in the movie, he wasn't in any of the books, nothing. When it comes to Lur, his only real appearance in the entirety of Ninjago is in, of all things, an activity book. This activity book, to be specific. And in case you're wondering, this is actually my copy of this activity book that I got back in 2015 when I first got this. Pretty sure I got this at a book fair that my school had. But anyway, when it comes to this book, it features the one and only appearance that Lur ever has in the entirety of the franchise, where he actually physically appears, and I'll explain what I mean by that later on. So when it comes to Lur, like I said, he appears in this activity book, and he appears in one of these short stories that is in the book. Specifically, the short story A Cup of Victory, where during the story, we see Kai and Lur going up against each other in a training match for the Tournament of Elements, even though that's something that was never in Season 4 at any point, but still it happened. And Kai is getting consistently defeated by Lur over and over again because Kai has fire powers, meanwhile Lur has water powers, so again he's being defeated. However, when it comes to Kai, he ends up taking some advice that Lloyd gave him, which was actually just a proverb that Sensei Wu said that involved drinking tea at the end of it, and Kai had the idea to use his fire power in order to turn Lur's water into steam, thus confusing Lur, allowing Kai to defeat him. And that's it. That is literally all we get when it comes to this story, when it comes to this book. Yeah, it was pretty short, but again, yeah, that's pretty much all we get when it comes to Lur's appearance in this book, and that's basically all he gets. He just fights against Kai, and that's it. He doesn't get any lines, he barely gets a personality, he's just there as an opponent for the ninja to go up against during the tournament. After the short story, though, there is a little quiz that you can take about the story that you just read, and we also get a picture of the first Ninjutsu Master on the next page, so that's kind of cool. And according to the quiz, one of Lur's powers is the ability to unscrew water balls using his powers, which is something. And also this quiz asks if Kai defeated Lur by using his Spinjitzu power to turn Lur into ice, which... Like, I get that these activity books are made for kids and all, but seriously? So, like I said, when it comes to Lur's appearance in this activity book, this is basically his only real appearance in the franchise, where he physically appears, because, believe it or not, Lur was actually referenced a few years later in the Way of the Departed story, which is a story that was released on the Twitter account of Tommy Andreasen, the co-creator of Ninjago. And in that story, Salil explained to Cole that Lur had actually tricked a bunch of people into believing that he was the elemental master of water and not Nia. And he was even able to get a publisher to release a bunch of stories revolving around his legendary fights, with one of those fights actually being the fight that he is in this activity book. Which technically means that when it comes to the fight between Kai and Lur in this book, in universe, it is a fictional story, which is something that I actually think is kind of interesting, although it does lead me to wonder, why would Lur write a story where he loses to one of the ninja? Personally, I think that's kind of weird, but I digress. And something else that's interesting that I want to bring up is that given that Lur was referenced in the Way of the Departed story, then it leads me to wonder, does this mean that Lur actually exists in the main continuity for Ninjago? Because obviously this activity book is not canon when it comes to Ninjago. However, when it comes to Way of the Departed, it is a could-be canon story, meaning that it's a story that, well, could be canon to the franchise, but it's up to the interpretation of the reader as to whether or not they actually want to consider it to be canon. And given that Lur is being referenced in this book, again, it does lead me to wonder, does that mean he actually exists in the main continuity for Ninjago? It's possible, but it's a bit unclear given the confusing canonicity of Way of the Departed. Although, again, Lur was referenced in that, which I do think is a big deal. But that's basically all there is when it comes to Lur. There really isn't anything else that interesting about him. I went onto the Ninjago Wiki to see if there was anything else I could learn about him, and literally the only other interesting thing about him that I could learn is that apparently his main weapon of choice is a crossbow, and that was pretty much it. There wasn't really anything else that interesting about him. However, I feel like at this point we now need to address the elephant in the room, with that obviously being Nia. Nia was introduced as the Elemental Master of Water in literally the next season, Possession, and during Season 5, we even had a brief moment where we saw Maya in a flashback using her water powers. So what exactly is the deal with Lur and him being the Elemental Master of Water? What exactly happened there? Well, it's a bit unclear as to what exactly did happen. However, the Ninjago Wiki does have two theories as to what potentially happened. The first one being that Lur was created before there was the idea to turn Nia into the Ninja of Water, and the other theory is that when it came to the people who were working on the books, they didn't have very good communication with the people who were working on the show, which in all honesty, I think that one was probably more likely. And Tommy Andreasen even said that when it came to Lur, he's a product of the little oversight and scrutiny that was present in the earlier days of managing Ninjago. Which, yeah, I feel like that does make sense, because the whole situation surrounding Lur is really weird and confusing. Because again, we have Lur, who's the Master of Water, who was introduced one season before Nia became the Master of Water, which is definitely really odd. And we've never really gotten a situation like this before when it comes to the franchise. Not before or even after the introduction of Lur. It's something that is definitely pretty strange, and it is definitely one of those weird things that we got in the earlier days of the franchise. But still, I feel like the whole situation surrounding Lur is pretty interesting, despite Lur himself not really being a very interesting character. But still, I feel like the whole situation and essentially story surrounding him is still fairly interesting because of just how unique it is and how unique of a character Lur is in comparison to just about everyone else that we've gotten when it comes to the franchise. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below, what do you guys think? Tell me what are your guys' thoughts on Lur, and also, do you remember him? Tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.